There's a hedgerow and an apple store. The Cobbitts orchard, past the little pear plantation. There's some damson plums. Here's the row of espaliers pears, which we quite deliberately planted here as a visual screen between the vegetable and soft fruit garden and the orchard. We've got a few apple trees dotted around here, and yeah, I see we've got a lot of the raspberries are coming up here that were dug out. We'll have to deal with those.
We didn't have very much time when we were preparing this ground for the potatoes, so we did it the lazy way. We just took the turf and the weed off, folded it over, and then dug the potatoes into the trenches that we'd just made.
The potatoes are coming up through the
We've been earthing up those trenches with a mixture of manure and soil.
Potatoes,
and a lot of the weed has rotted down under those folded over bits, but they're obviously the raspberries are coming up, but they're not too difficult to pull out. As we earth up the potatoes, the weeds and the raspberries.
And you're quite anxious to earth these potatoes up in case we get a bit more frost.
But these have come up in 2 days because the soil has been warm. We've had some warm weather, and if we get a frost tonight, that will burn those leaves off. And we don't want these set back. We've got some early potatoes.
So you're earthing the potatoes up. I like to use the heavy hoe, the African hoe, when I do that, but you prefer...
Well, yes, I normally would, but because of the way that we did it, we've got slabs of turf.
Oh, I see.
And I don't want to drag great slabs over because it will damage the young shoots.
Right.
So I'm now just gently crumbling the soil in over those, and then we can take the...
To protect them from the frost, yeah.
See, this hasn't been dug. And it
I see.
Like a great slab.
So once again, we're compromising. This is what we're saying here. If you learn the principles of why you're doing things, you can maybe change the rules occasionally.
It's a messy way of doing it, but it means we were able to get the crop in on time.
That's right, because an ideal way, you'd have dug it all through very carefully and removed all the roots of the raspberries. We had some raspberries here, but they got virus. After a while, raspberry canes get a virus and you have to dig them out and replant somewhere else. Potatoes are a good crop to put in after anything like that because you have the necessity to cultivate the land. Right, and I see you've put some little notices up to say which variety. That's Cara there.
Is a main crop. Because I'm growing different varieties, I wanted to name them all so that I know which ones to harvest first. The early potatoes, the new potatoes we want to harvest first, and leave the main crops in to develop their full flavour, and then they'll be our main storage potatoes.
Right. So successional planting, that's one of the one of the principles, isn't it, of self-sufficiency. I really came across that concept in John and Sally Seymour's great book, Practical Self-Sufficiency, and they talked about successional planting. If you plant, for example, with French beans, we haven't planted them yet. It's too early.
No, they wouldn't do well yet. The ground's
no, it's much too early. But when we get French beans out, we'll put some in the ground, and then 2 weeks later we'll put some more in. So we'll start sowing them from probably late May. We'll start planting. We'll start putting French beans in late May, dwarf French beans, and maybe some climbing ones as well. Hopefully we'll show that later. Once we'll plant some every 2 weeks from the earliest time we can plant them until the last time we can plant them. Because otherwise, if you planted all, you put all your French beans in, say 1st of June, then come August, you'd have a really nice load of French beans, maybe some for your freezer. But then you'd have none, it'll be gone. So if you start planting them early as you can. Sometimes we put them in pots, haven't we, but I just haven't got the energy to do that.
Well, it's a lot of work with the watering.
Yeah, so we tend to wait until the soil is warm enough to be able to sow French beans. Of course, sowing is when you put the seed in the earth, isn't it? And planting is when you raise the plants and then put them out. Potatoes, of course, you put in actual potatoes which have started to sprout. This may seem awfully simplistic, I hope nobody will feel offended by us putting a video up of how to earth up potatoes, because it really is a fairly basic skill. But a lot of folks in the wealthier parts of the world have forgotten how to do things like this, and that isn't meant offensively. But since I've been offering such knowledge as I might have gained from reading and experience about growing apples, it's become very clear to me through the frequently asked questions that I don't want to cause offence by saying this, a lot of people really don't have the first idea, and that's not to criticise them. If nobody has taught something, how should they hear unless somebody tell them? So anyway, here's Julia, as usual. It's well known fact that throughout the world it's women that do most of the hard work, and men sort of swan around and talk.